The war room of the flagship Eternal Dominion was filled with the most powerful military leaders the Velnorix Empire had ever known. They stood in a circle around a glowing map of the galaxy. Their gray skin reflected the blue light of distant stars. Their yellow eyes watched the small dot that marked their target, Earth. High Admiral Kethvorn walked to the center of the room. He was tall, even by Velnorix standards. His chest was covered with medals from 100 conquered worlds. When he spoke, his voice was like thunder. "My brothers and sisters in conquest," he began, "today we launched the greatest invasion force in the history of our empire. 12,000 warships, 3 million soldiers. We fly toward a small blue planet in a quiet corner of the galaxy." He touched the map, and Earth grew larger. A beautiful world of blue oceans and green lands appeared before them. "The humans," Kethvorn continued, "are a young species. They have existed for only a few 100,000 years. They have not discovered faster than light travel. They fight among themselves like children. They have touched their own moon only a handful of times, and even that was long ago." After filled the room, the commanders looked at each other with amusement. This would be an easy victory. "Their weapons are primitive," said General Vortek, the ground forces commander. "Nuclear bombs, chemical rockets, projectile weapons. We faced more dangerous enemies when we conquered the Mindari, and that took us only 3 days. I estimate 72 hours for complete planetary control," added Fleet Commander Israel. "Perhaps less if they surrender quickly." The room filled with confident voices. Victory was certain. The humans would fall like all the others before them. 340 species had joined the empire, most of them by force. What was one more primitive world? But in the corner of the room, one voice did not join the celebration. Skala Yuthmara was not a soldier. She was a xenanthropologist, a scientist who studied alien cultures. She had been brought to advise the council on human behavior. Now she stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "Hi, Admiral. I must speak." The room grew quiet. Kethvorn turned to look at her with annoyance. "Speak then, scholar. But be quick." Yuthmara activated her own display. Human images filled the air. Soldiers marching. Cities burning. Mushroom clouds rising. "The humans are not like other species we have conquered," she said. "Their history is strange. Wrong. They have been killing each other since they first learned to stand upright. 2 massive world wars in a single century. Hundreds of smaller conflicts. They developed nuclear weapons and pointed them at themselves." "This shows their weakness," Vortek interrupted. "They are divided. They fight each other instead of working together." K. Yetmora said, her voice firm. "This shows something else. They are not weak. They are survivors. Any species this violent should have destroyed itself long ago, but they did not. They kept growing. And their technology." She pulled up a chart showing human progress over time. "Look at this curve. 200 years ago, they rode animals and lit candles for light. Now they split atoms and sent machines to other planets. This rate of progress is unprecedented in our records." Kethvorn waved his hand dismissively. "Progress means nothing without results. They still cannot reach the stars." "That we know of," Yuthmara said quietly. The room went silent for a moment. Then Kethvorn laughed, and the other commanders joined him. "You have spent too much time reading old books, scholar," the High Admiral said. "The humans are primitive. Our scans show the truth. They have no orbital defenses, no fleet, nothing that can touch us. We will arrive, we will demand surrender, and if they refuse, we will take what we want. It is the way of the Empire. It has always worked before." Yuthmora knew she had lost. The council did not want warnings. They wanted easy conquest. She bowed her head and stepped back into the shadows. "Begin the jump sequence," Kethvorn commanded. "In 3 days, Earth will belong to us." The great engines of 12,000 ships came to life. Space itself bent around the Armada as they prepared to cross the vast distance to Sol System. The flagship shook gently as reality twisted, and then they were gone, racing through hyperspace toward humanity's home. In her small quarters, Ythmora sat alone with her research. She had spent years studying human culture, their music, their art, their literature, and their wars. Always their wars. She pulled up a file she had translated recently. It was from an ancient human text written by a general named Sun Tzu thousands of years ago. The words appeared on her screen, and she read them again. Appear weak when you are strong. Appear strong when you are weak. She thought about the human technology curve. She thought about how quickly they had gone from horses to rockets. She thought about how their scans showed no defenses, no fleet, nothing at all. Nothing at all. Her hands began to shake. What if the humans were not weak? What if they only appeared weak? What if everything the Empire knew about them was exactly what the humans wanted them to know? She looked out her window at the swirling colors of hyperspace. 12,000 ships flew toward a world that looked helpless. But for the first time in her long career, scholar Ythmora felt true fear. Not for the humans, for herself, for the Armada, for everyone who flew with her toward that small blue dot in the darkness. She whispered to the empty room, "What if we are the ones who are not ready?" No one heard her. No one listened. And the Armada flew on. 3 kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps, in a place that did not exist on any map. General Marcus Chen stood before a wall of screens. Each screen showed a different view of space. Satellites, telescopes, sensors hidden on asteroids and moons. The entire solar system was being watched. And right now, the watchers had found something. "Confirmation received, General," said a young officer at the main console. 12,000 alien vessels have entered our solar system. They are currently passing Neptune's orbit. Speed indicates they will reach Earth in approximately 47 hours. Chen was 63 years old. He had gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent his entire adult life preparing for this moment. Part of him had hoped it would never come. "Show me," he said quietly. The main screen changed. It showed the Armada, a vast cloud of ships moving through the darkness. They were shaped like arrows, built for war. Their formation was perfect, professional. "They are not hiding," said Dr. Amara Ase, who stood beside the general. She was the lead weapons architect for SolGuard, the most secret organization in human history. "They want us to see them. They think we are helpless. But they think correctly," Chen replied. "Or at least, they think what we wanted them to think." He turned to face the command center. 100 of the most brilliant minds on Earth worked at their stations. They came from every nation: American, Chinese, Russian, Indian, European, African, old enemies, who had learned to work together when they discovered they were not alone in the universe. It had started in 1967. A small alien probe had crashed in the Siberian wilderness. The Soviet Union had recovered it in secret, but they quickly realized they could not understand the technology alone. Within months, every major power on Earth knew about it. And instead of fighting over it, they made a choice that changed history. They worked together. The public never knew. They saw NASA and space agencies launching rockets and building space stations. They saw billionaires selling tickets for space tourism. They saw silly movies about aliens and laughed at the idea. But beneath the surface, humanity had been preparing. For almost 80 years, the greatest scientific minds of every generation had studied the probe. They had reverse engineered its power source, its materials, its weapons. They had built in secret while the world above lived in happy ignorance. SolGuard was the result. 200 weapons platforms hidden throughout the solar system, disguised as asteroids and space debris. A network of sensors that could detect a ship entering the system from light years away. Weapons that used antimatter and gravity in things the public would not believe possible. And above it all, the Shroud, a field that covered Earth and made it appear primitive to any watching eyes. Visitors looking at humanity would see exactly what Solgard wanted them to see. Old rockets, simple satellites, a species that had not yet reached the stars. It was the greatest lie ever told. And today, that lie would end. "What are your orders, General?" asked Colonel Rivera, the operations chief. Chen looked at the screens one more time. He had always hoped that first contact would be peaceful, that aliens would come in friendship, wanting to trade and learn and grow together. The probes Solgard had sent to the edges of the system had returned with information about a vast empire, an empire built on conquest and slavery and the bones of hundreds of species. The Velnorks were not coming in peace. They were coming to take, to control, to add humanity to their collection of conquered worlds. Chen felt something cold settle in his chest. Not fear, something worse, certainty. "Teed, activate all platforms," he said. "Bring every system online, and drop the shroud." The room burst into motion. Officers sent commands across the solar system at the speed of light. One by one, weapons that had slept for decades began to wake. Power cores that had waited in cold silence began to glow with deadly energy. And the shroud, the great illusion that had protected Earth for so long, began to fade. Dr. Issei watched her displays with a mix of pride and sadness. She had designed many of the weapons that would soon be used. They were beautiful in their terrible efficiency, but she had never wanted to actually use them. 80 years of work, she said softly. "All for this moment." "Not just 80 years, Chen replied. "Humanity has been preparing for war since we first picked up sticks and stones. Every battle we ever fought, every weapon we ever built, every lesson we ever learned, it all led here." He pressed a button on his console. Across the solar system, green lights began to appear on the map. Thousands of them. Hidden bases on moons. Weapons platforms in the asteroid belt. Satellites that were not satellites at all. The trap was ready. The hunters had become the hunted. Far away, aboard the Eternal Dominion, a sensor officer stared at his screen with confusion. The readings were changing. Earth, which had shown nothing but primitive signals for years, was suddenly blazing with energy. Power sources were appearing everywhere. Things that had looked like rocks were revealing themselves as machines. "Hi, Admiral," the officer said, his voice shaking. "Something is wrong. Earth just changed. Their energy signature is... This is impossible. These readings must be wrong." Kethforin walked to the sensor station. He looked at the screen, and for the first time in his long career, he felt something he did not recognize. It was fear. "What are they?" he whispered. But no one could answer him, because no one in the Velnorix Empire had ever seen anything like what was waking up in the Sol system, and it was all pointed directly at them. The space between Jupiter and Mars was cold and empty. For millions of years, nothing had disturbed the silence. Asteroids drifted slowly in the darkness. Distant stars provided the only light. Now, 12,000 Velnorix warships filled that emptiness. Their engines glowed blue against the black of space. Their weapons were charged and ready. High Admiral Kethforin stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, watching the human planet grow closer on his screens. But something was wrong. "Report," he demanded. "What are we seeing?" His sensor officers worked frantically at their stations. "Objects all around us, High Admiral. We classified them as asteroid debris and dead satellites, but they are powering up. There are thousands of them." Kethforin felt a chill run down his spine. The map of the solar system was filling with red dots. They were everywhere, hidden among the asteroids, orbiting moons, floating into spaces between worlds, and all of them were aimed at his fleet. "Possible," General Vortex said. "Our scouts said the humans had no space fleet, no orbital weapons, nothing but chemical rockets and primitive satellites." "Your scouts were wrong," Kethforin said quietly. or they saw only what the humans wanted them to see. He remembered scholar Yithmora's warnings, her charts showing human progress, her questions about why Earth seemed so defenseless. He had laughed at her. He had called her a coward. Now he understood that she had been the only smart one among them. "Okay, all ships to battle formation," he commanded. "Prepare for engagement. We are the greatest fleet in the history of the Empire. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. These humans will learn that the Velnorics do not run." But even as he spoke, the first wave hit. There was no warning, no sound, no flash of light. One moment, 200 ships flew in formation at the edge of the fleet. The next moment, they were gone. Not destroyed in fire and explosions, just gone. As if a giant hand had erased them from existence. Cathforian stared at his display in horror. "What happened? What hit them?" "Unknown, High Admiral. We detected nothing. No energy beams, no missiles, nothing at all. But something had killed them." Later, the survivors would learn the truth. The humans had used kinetic weapons, tungsten rods, each one the size of a small vehicle, accelerated to 30% of the speed of light. At that velocity, they were invisible. They could not be detected or avoided. They simply appeared and deleted anything they touched before the Velnorics could process the first attack. The second wave came. This time, there was fire. Bright flashes of light appeared inside the fleet itself. Ships exploded from within, their hulls torn apart by forces beyond understanding. The Velnorics had shields, but the weapons were not coming from outside. They were appearing inside the ships directly. Antimatter warheads delivered through micro-wormholes. The humans had mastered dimensional folding. They could put a bomb in the center of any ship they chose, bypassing every defense. Panic spread through the fleet. Commanders screamed orders that no one could follow. Ships tried to break formation, tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The killing field surrounded them on all sides. Then came the third wave, and this was the worst of all. They came in swarms. Millions of tiny machines, each one smaller than a human fist. They moved like living things, like a cloud of hungry insects. They slipped through gaps in hull plating. They crawled into engine ports. They found the weak points in every ship and tore them apart from within. Autonomous hunter-killer drones, controlled by artificial intelligence, designed for one purpose only: destruction. Cathforin watched his mighty armada die. 12,000 ships became 6,000. 6,000 became 2,000. 2,000 became 400. The battle, if it could be called a battle, lasted less than 3 hours. Not a single human ship had been seen. Not a single human soldier had been spotted. The Velnorics were being destroyed by machines, by infrastructure, by weapons that had been waiting in the darkness for decades. "High Admiral," his communications officer said. "What do we do?" Cathvorin looked at the remains of his fleet. He had commanded the greatest invasion force ever assembled. Now he commanded less than 50 ships, and most of those were damaged beyond repair. "Open a channel," he said. His voice was hollow, dead, all frequencies. "We must surrender." The channel opened. Cathforin spoke slowly, hoping the humans would understand. "This is High Admiral Cathforin of the Velnorics Empire. We surrender. We ask for mercy. Please, respond." For a long moment, there was silence. Then a voice came through the speakers. It spoke in perfect Velnorics, as if mocking them. "Surrender is for those who reach the negotiating table. You are still in the killing field." Another wave of drones appeared on the sensors. The last surviving ships began to scream distress calls into the void, and in the darkness of space, surrounded by the debris of 12,000 warships, High Admiral Cathforin finally understood the truth. The humans had not been hiding from the galaxy. They had been waiting, and now the galaxy would learn what happened to those who came to Earth with war in their hearts. The escape pod was small and cold. Scholar Ythmora floated inside, watching through a tiny window as the Armada died around her. Ships that had carried her people to victory across 1,000 worlds were now nothing but burning metal and frozen bodies. She had launched her pod when the third wave hit. Self-preservation, perhaps. Or maybe just shock. But now, alone in the darkness, she had time to think. Time to understand. She pulled up her research files on the small screen in front of her. Human history. Their wars. Their weapons. Their endless capacity for violence. She had studied these things for years, but she had never truly understood them. Now, watching her people burn, she finally did. The Velnorics had conquered 340 species. Most of them had fought back, of course. Some had fought well, but eventually they all fell. They were conquered because war, for them, was an exception. Something terrible that happened sometimes. Something to be avoided. For humans, war was different. War was not an exception. War was practice. Ythmora scrolled through the records. 2 massive world wars in a single century. Millions dead. Cities destroyed. And then, just decades later, they had done something remarkable. They had created weapons that could destroy their entire planet. Nuclear bombs. Enough to burn every city, poison every ocean, kill every living thing. And they had pointed those weapons at each other. Any other species would have destroyed themselves. The Mindari had. The Vugroth had. Dozens of species had discovered atomic power and promptly used it to end their own existence. But not the humans. They had lived with those weapons for almost 100 years. They had come close to using them several times, but they had always pulled back. They had learned to control their violence, not to eliminate it, to control it, to aim it. Every war they fought made them better at fighting. Every weapon they built led to a more terrible weapon. They had never stopped, never rested, never believed they were safe. While other species built museums and wrote poetry, humans built bigger bombs and faster ships and smarter machines. The Velnorics had thought they were the hunters. They had looked at Earth and seen prey. They had been so very wrong. Far below, in the Soul Guard Command Center, General Chen watched the same destruction from a different perspective. The main screen showed the battle map. Red dots, representing Velnoric's ships, blinked out one by one. Soon there would be none left. He felt no joy, no triumph, only a deep, aching sadness. 47 ships remaining, Colonel Rivera reported. They are not fighting back. They appeared to be trying to flee. Dr. Rasay stood beside Chen, her arms crossed. Her weapons had worked perfectly. Every system performed exactly as designed. This was her life's work, and it had succeeded beyond all expectations. But there were tears in her eyes. "Okay, this was not a battle," she said softly. "This was an execution." Chen nodded slowly. "They came to conquer us, to take our world, to make us slaves like so many others. No, we had to defend ourselves. I understand that." She wiped her eyes. "But I designed those weapons, Marcus. I built them. And now I have to live with what they have done." Chen put a hand on her shoulder. "We all have to live with it. Every person in this room, every government that funded Soul Guard, every scientist who worked on the project. We all carry this weight now." On the screen, another Velnork's ship exploded. 31 left. "General," said a sensor officer, "we have detected an escape pod. Single life sign. It launched from one of the support vessels before the third wave." Chen turned to look at the display. One small pod, drifting among the wreckage of the greatest armada the galaxy had ever seen. One survivor. "What do we do?" Rivera asked. "Our drones can reach it in minutes. We could destroy it easily." Sean stared at the tiny dot on his screen. Inside that pod was an alien, a member of the Empire that had come to enslave humanity. A being who had been part of the invasion force, but also a survivor. Someone who had escaped the killing field. Okay. No, Chen said finally. We will not destroy it, sir. Rivera looked confused. They came to conquer us. They would have killed millions, enslaved billions. Yes, they would have. And we stopped them. We protected our people. We did what we had to do. Chen turned away from the screen. But if we are going to survive in this galaxy, we cannot be only killers. The Velnorix Empire needs to know what happened here. They need to know why their Armada never returned. He made his decision. Send a retrieval team. Bring the survivor in. It is time the galaxy learned who we really are. And why? Rivera nodded and began giving orders. Dr. Ose looked at Chen with surprise and something like hope. You want to send a message, she said. Yes, 2 messages. Actually, Chen looked at the burning wreckage on his screen. One made of fire and death, and one made of mercy and choice. Let them wonder which one represents the true face of humanity. In her escape pod, Ythmara watched as a human ship approached. She expected to die. She waited for the weapons to fire. Instead, a docking arm reached out gently. The pod was pulled into a cargo bay. She heard sounds outside, footsteps, voices. Then the door opened, and she saw humans for the first time. They were smaller than she expected, soft-looking, no claws, no armor, no visible weapons, and yet these creatures had just destroyed 12,000 warships without losing a single soldier. One of the humans stepped forward. He was young, with kind eyes. He spoke in her language, perfectly accented. You are safe, he said. We will not hurt you. We have questions, and we have things to show you. Ythmora could not speak. She could only stare at this impossible species. The young man smiled. Welcome to Sol System, Scholar. Class is now in session. 1 year had passed since the Armada died. Scholar Ythmora stood at a window in the Solgard diplomatic wing, looking out at the mountains of Switzerland. Snow covered the peaks. Birds flew in the blue sky. Somewhere in the valley below, human children were playing in a park. It was beautiful, peaceful, impossible. She had spent 12 months learning about humanity. At first, she had been a prisoner, then a student, and finally, something close to a friend. The humans had shown her everything. Their history, their wars, their greatest triumphs, and their darkest moments. They had hidden nothing. She had seen recordings of their world wars, millions dead in trenches filled with poison gas, cities burned by firebombs, mushroom clouds rising over civilian populations. She had watched humans cry as they showed her these things. They were not proud of their violence, but they had not hidden from it. Either, she had also seen their art, paintings that captured light and shadow in ways she had never imagined. Music that made her hearts ache with emotions she could not name. Stories of love and loss and hope and fear. Humans felt everything so deeply. Their emotions were like storms, powerful and uncontrollable. And she had seen their children, small humans who laughed and played and asked questions about everything. One little girl, maybe 6 years old, had walked up to Ythmora in the park and offered her a drawing. It showed a Velnorix and a human holding hands under a yellow sun. This is for you, the child had said, so you'll remember that we can be friends. Ythmora had kept that drawing. She looked at it every night before she slept. Now her time on Earth was ending. General Chen had offered her a choice. She could stay on Earth as an ambassador, or she could return to the Empire with a message. She chose to return. The broadcast had been prepared for weeks. It would be sent across all known galactic frequencies. Every species within range would see it. Every empire, every civilization. The message would travel for centuries, spreading across the stars like ripples in a pond. Ythmora was brought to a large room filled with equipment. General Chen stood at the center. wearing a formal uniform. Dr. Issei was there too, along with representatives from every nation on Earth. The leaders of humanity had gathered to speak with one voice. "Are you ready?" Chen asked Ythmora. "I do not think anyone could be ready for this," she replied. "But I will do what I promised. I will tell them what I have seen, what I have learned." Ki nodded. He turned to the cameras, and the broadcast began. First, Kea. They showed the destruction of the Armada, unedited, complete, 12,000 ships dying in fire and silence. The images were terrible. Velnorks across the galaxy would watch their greatest fleet vanish in less than 3 hours. Then General Chen spoke. "To all who received this message," he said, "we are humanity. We live on a small blue planet called Earth in a quiet corner of the galaxy. For generations, we kept ourselves hidden. We watched and waited, hoping that when we met other species, it would be in peace and friendship." His voice was calm, steady, but there was iron beneath the words. The Velnorix Empire sent 12,000 warships to conquer our world. They wanted to enslave our people and take our resources. They saw us as weak, primitive, easy prey. The screen showed the debris field. Thousands of broken ships, now orbiting the sun as a glittering ring of metal and ice. They were wrong. Earth is not a target. Earth is not a prize to be won. Earth is a graveyard for those who mistake our silence for weakness. Chen paused. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. "But this message is not only a warning. We do not seek conquest. We do not want war. We defended ourselves because we had no other choice. If the Velnorix had come in peace, they would have found partners, allies, friends." The image changed. It showed humans and Ythmora together, scientists working, children laughing, the drawing of the Velnorix and human holding hands. "We are not monsters. We are survivors of our own violence, of our own mistakes, of a universe that gave us nothing and made us fight for everything. We have learned hard lessons. We have paid for them in blood and tears." Chen looked directly into the camera. "Come to us in peace, and we will welcome you. Trade with us, learn with us, grow with us. The stars are vast enough for all of us, but come to us in war." The screen showed the debris field one more time. "And you will join those who came before you." This is not a threat. It is a promise and a warning. We did not use our best weapons against the Armada. We did not need to. Remember that? The broadcast ended. The room was silent. Ythmora boarded her ship that afternoon. It was small, built for a single passenger, but it was fast. She would reach the edges of Velnorix space in a few months. The Empire would want to debrief her. They would want to know everything, and she would tell them. She would tell them of the tungsten rods that moved at the speed of light, the antimatter bombs that appeared inside ships, the hunter drones that ate fleets like insects. She would tell them about Soulguard and the 80 years of preparation, but she would also tell them about the little girl in the park, about the music that made her cry, about the humans who had shown her their darkest moments without shame or excuses, about a species that had conquered its own demons and was ready to face whatever the galaxy threw at them. As her ship broke through the atmosphere, Ythmora looked back at Earth one final time. The blue marble hung in the darkness, beautiful and peaceful. It was hard to believe that such a gentle-looking world held so much terrible power. And then she remembered the final words General Chen had spoken to her before she left. "We showed the Empire our weapons," he had said. "Now you must show them our heart. Give them the drawing the child made. Let them see both sides of humanity. Let them choose which one they want to meet." Ythmora held the drawing in her hand, a Velnorix and a human, holding hands, under a yellow sun. She wondered which image would define humanity's future, the debris field of the Armada or the hope of a child. Perhaps, she thought, humanity wanted the same thing. As the stars stretched out before her, scholar Ythmora made herself a promise. She would not just deliver a warning. She would deliver a chance, a possibility, a future where the killing could end and something new could begin. It was the most